Shalom and welcome to Davar Word. It is my pleasure to share with you what I have discovered in my walk so that we can learn and grow together. Genesis 49 verse 10. The scepter will not pass from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs will come. To him will be the obedience of the peoples. The time of the birth of the Savior is not stated clearly in the Bible, but it is most certainly not in December. Some speculate it happened during the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot. I would like to talk about nativity scenes. We see Miriam, Joseph, and the infant Yeshua visited by guests bearing gifts, shepherds, and a star lighting the way, and sometimes camels. The nativity scene is a harmonization of two different Gospels. The shepherds and their flock come from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verses 8 to 20. The rest of the imagery, including the star, the barn-like location, and the gift-bearing visitors, derives from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. The nativity looks peaceful, but actually it is not. In contrast to the peaceful, idyllic nativity scene of a family celebrating the birth of a hoped-for child, behind the scenes is a story of political rivalry, rejection, exile, violence, and death. The story in Matthew is set in the time of King Herod the Great, 72 to 4 BCE. There are actually 6 Herods in the scriptures: Herod the Great, Herod Archelaus, Herod Antipas, Herod Philip, Herod Agrippa I, Herod Agrippa II. Herod's family was not from Judah, but he was an Edomite from the family of Esau. He was not an Israelite. Herod conquered Jerusalem and became king of Judea. The Magi are Gentile wise men from a foreign land east of Israel. They came to Herod. Matthew 2 verse 1. In the time of King Herod, after Yeshua was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage." The Magi did not come to honor Herod. The Magi's focus was not on Jerusalem at all, but instead on Bethlehem. They were looking to give honor to the child. Note what the scriptures say: the child, not the baby or infant. They must have come from a long distant place. So, when Yeshua was born, they started the journey all the way to Bethlehem. And by the time they reached, he was no longer a baby, but a young child, living in a house. The Magi called him the King of the Jews. This was Herod's title. These foreigners were declaring that someone else other than Herod, a child, was truly the King of the Jews. This child had been born king, not even born a prince, but straight away born a king, unlike Herod, who was appointed by the Romans as King of the Jews, but not even a Jew himself. The book of Matthew claims that Yeshua is the legitimate heir to David, and Yeshua will sit on David's throne forever, according to the promise of 2 Samuel 7. The book of Matthew traces Yeshua's genealogy, mentioning 3 sets of 14 generations, from Abraham to David, from David to the exile, and from the exile to Yeshua, to demonstrate that God was organizing human history so that the climax is in the Messiah. This is recorded in Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 to 17. For Matthew, the story of Yeshua is the story of the true Davidic king. his identity is recognized upon his birth by outsiders who live outside of Israel and also by those in power. Matthew states that there are 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 generations from David to the deportation to Babylon, and 14 generations from the exile to Yeshua. Matthew groups the generations, and sometimes the generations do not have exactly 14 names. Hebrew readers would recognize that the number 14 equals David in Gematria, in the system where each letter represents a number. Dalet is 4, Vav is 6, and Dalet is 4, altogether being 14. Matthew is stating very strongly that Yeshua is the rightful heir of the Davidic line. Both Matthew and Luke list Joseph, the husband of Miriam, the mother of Yeshua, as a Davidic descendant. However, certain parts in their genealogies do not agree. According to Luke chapter 3, verses 23 to 38, the messianic line goes through David's son Nathan, and Joseph's father is named Hiel. According to Matthew 1, verses 2 to 16, the line goes through King Solomon, and Joseph's father is named Yaakov. Despite the genealogical connection between Joseph and David, the Gospels present Yeshua's descent from David as legal rather than biological, since Joseph is not his biological father. Matthew 2, verses 3 to 5, when King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. The chief priests mean the priests who were in charge of carrying out the service at the temple. The scribes were those who make copies of the Torah and those who are the experts in interpreting Torah. These two were separate groups. They then paraphrased Micah 5 verse 1 for King Herod. Matthew 2 verse 6, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel. Matthew's genealogy presents Yeshua as heir to the Davidic kingdom, a kingdom which was intimately connected to the city of Jerusalem. King Herod was king over the current Jerusalem. By saying that a king is born, this was a threat to King Herod's status. The Magi told Herod that they had come to Jerusalem because they observed Yeshua's star in the east. Yeshua fulfilled the biblical prophecy of Balaam, the man who had a talking donkey. Numbers 24 verse 17, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. So this child would come out of Israel, not Edom. The symbol of stars was associated with the rising and falling of political leaders. For example, Isaiah refers to the decline of a Mesopotamian king. Isaiah 14 verse 12, how you are fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of dawn, how you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. So the Magi was saying something political to Herod loud and clear. Another star is rising, so yours must be falling. The star was a recognizable symbol of political power. Matthew 2 verses 1 to 2. In the time of King Herod, after Yeshua was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage. People always think there were 3 kings who traveled to Jerusalem because there were 3 gifts brought for Yeshua. But in truth, it was a whole entourage. Perhaps they were astrologers, but they knew the scriptures, the Torah. Stars do not function like GPS systems. Stars do not stop over the place where an ordinary child would be. Otherwise, the house and the earth would have been incinerated. The brightness and light of the star, which brightened the entire night sky during the birth of Yeshua, led the Magi to the child. This event is paralleled by the darkness that falls over the earth at Yeshua's crucifixion. This is recorded in Mark 15 verse 33 and Matthew 27 verse 45. There was cosmic significance and supernatural phenomena at Yeshua's birth and death. When the Magi left Jerusalem, the star acted as a celestial GPS, guiding them directly to where the child Yeshua was located in Bethlehem. Matthew 2 verse 9. When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in the east, until it stopped over the place where the child was. After they found Yeshua, the Magi presented gifts to him. Matthew 2 verses 10 to 12. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The gifts may also be something like visual aids to point forward to the events at the end of Yeshua's life. While the Magi presented gifts of gold, for example, Yeshua was betrayed by one of his own disciples, Yehuda, to the Roman authorities for the infamous 30 pieces of silver, as stated in Matthew 26 verse 15. Gold represents wealth and riches, and was likely the first elemental metal known to men. Due to its low chemical reactivity, it can be found naturally uncombined with other elements. It has a golden color, which is practically unique amongst the elemental metals. The gold signifies royalty. Frankincense is a resin obtained from the trees of the Boswellia genus and has a pale yellow appearance. The primary use of frankincense is as incense. It has also found uses in perfumery. Frankincense is meant to signify divinity. The frankincense may point to Yeshua's many hostile encounters in the temple, as well as the curtain of the temple being torn in two at the crucifixion, according to Matthew 27 verse 51. Myrrh, like frankincense, is also a resin obtained from trees of the genus Commiphora. It has a red-brown coloration. It was used as part of the embalming process in ancient Egypt. Like frankincense, it can be used both as incense and in perfumes. Myrrh has also been used in traditional medicine for centuries, and it even appears as an ingredient in some toothpastes and mouthwashes for its antiseptic properties. Modern research suggests that myrrh has additional benefits such as pain-killing properties, which it induces by acting in some way on the receptors in the brain responsible for the perception of pain. And more recent studies have shown that myrrh extracts can also have anti-inflammatory properties. Myrrh represents death and mortality. Given its association with embalming and mortuary practices, the myrrh points forward to Yeshua's death. According to Matthew 27, verses 57 to 60, upon receiving Yeshua's body from Pilate, Joseph of Arimathea wrapped him in a linen shroud. According to John 19, verse 39, Joseph of Arimathea was accompanied by Nicodemus, who brought a mixture of myrrh and aloe with him. The gifts that Yeshua got as a child may also point forward to the gifts surrounding his death. In Matthew 26, verses 6 to 13, Miriam brought the gift of expensive perfume to anoint Yeshua in Bethany. However, it was an act condemned by his disciples. Also, in Matthew 27, verses 28 to 29, there were things given to Yeshua by the Roman soldiers to mock him after his arrest. Those were gifts not of homage, but of degradation and scorn. They were a scarlet robe, a crown of twisted thorns, and a staff for his right hand. Herod attempted to deceive the Magi. Before the Magi departed for Bethlehem, Herod said that he too wanted to go pay homage to the child. Matthew 2 verses 7 to 8. Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." The Magi, however, evaded Herod. Matthew 2 verse 12. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Herod then ordered the massacre of the young children around Bethlehem in an attempt to kill Yeshua. Matthew 2 verses 16 to 18. When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the Magi, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had learned from the Magi. Then what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. This verse is an echo of the instructions of Pharaoh in Egypt at the beginning of Exodus 1 verse 16. Both the story of Moses and Yeshua began with political violence and death, and they remind us of the ways rulers are capable of behaving towards those who might threaten their leadership and authority. Several aspects of the story of the Magi invite readers to look ahead to what awaited Yeshua when he finally came to Jerusalem. The title, King of the Jews, does not only have relevance to the genealogy of Yeshua in Matthew chapter 1, but it also projected forward to the trial and crucifixion. According to Matthew 27 verse 11, when Yeshua was bound and brought before the Roman procurator Pontius Pilate, Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You say so," said Yeshua to Pilate. Later in Matthew 27 verse 29, the Roman soldiers at Pilate's order dressed Yeshua in a grotesque parody of the symbols of royalty and mockingly paid him homage, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Matthew's genealogy, the opening chapter of the New Testament, starts with a general statement. Matthew 1 verse 1. An account of the genealogy of Yeshua the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Matthew then presents the genealogy beginning with Abraham and includes 4 unexpected women. Matthew 1 verse 16 mentions Yaakov, the father of Yosef, in the genealogy. This second Yosef, like the original Yosef, son of Yaakov in Genesis, will dream dreams and protect his family by resettling them in Egypt. This is recorded in Matthew 1 verses 20 to 21 and Matthew 2 verse 13. Matthew's genealogy names 4 women. Instead of the expected matriarchs of Israel, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, Matthew mentions Tamar, the Levirate widow who conceives twins when she tricks her father-in-law Judah into having relations with her in Genesis 38. Rahab, the prostitute from Jericho, recorded in Joshua 2 and Joshua 6, the mother of Boaz. Ruth, who convinced Boaz to marry her at the threshing floor. This is recorded in Ruth chapter 3. The wife of Uriah, or better known as Bathsheba, she was actually the widow of Uriah the Hittite and the wife of King David. This is recorded in 2 Samuel chapter 11. Rahab and Ruth, and possibly Tamar, mark the presence of Gentiles in the Davidic line, and so it foreshadows the turning of pagans to the God of Israel. The stories surrounding these 4 women in the genealogy of Yeshua all have the potential to scandalize, yet they are recorded right there in the scriptures. Likewise, the circumstances surrounding the birth of Yeshua were dark and dangerous times, very unlike the peaceful nativity scenes we see on cards and decorated shopping malls. God can use difficult situations and redeem painful trials such as injustice, abuse, loss, war, and famine. Our pain and circumstances are no impediment for entrance into the kingdom of Yeshua, the King of the Jews, and full acceptance into the commonwealth of Israel. Thank you for joining me. I pray that this message inspires and challenges you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.